Think about the one place you're supposed to feel safest. A hospital. Well, that's exactly where a man who called himself the Angel of Death was at work. Today we're diving into the deeply unsettling story of Donald Harvey. For 17 years. For 17 long years, Donald Harvey wasn't healing people in hospital hallways, he was hunting them. And that just leaves you with this one massive, staggering question, right? How on earth did a hospital orderly manage to murder as many as 70 people and get away with it for nearly 2 decades? To even begin to wrap our heads around how this happened, we have to start with the why. And honestly, Harvey's own words are, well, they're bone-chilling. He actually said, "I appointed myself judge, prosecutor, and jury." He didn't see himself as a killer. No, in his twisted mind, he was playing God.
Okay, so where does a story like this even begin? Let's trace it back. Let's look at his early life and the very first steps he took down this incredibly dark path. You know, when you look into Harvey's childhood, it's like you're looking at 2 totally different people. To his mother, he was a good boy. His principal even called him a happy child. But his classmates, they saw someone else entirely, a complete loner. It's this stark contrast that really hints at a hidden, isolated world he was already building for himself.
So picture this. It's 1970. Harvey's kind of adrift. He had dropped out of high school, lost a factory job. Then a simple visit to a sick grandfather changes everything. He gets an unexpected job offer to be an orderly at Marymount Hospital. And just like that, the fox was in the henhouse. He was handed the keys, given access to the most vulnerable people you can imagine. And once he was inside those hospital walls, he started building this persona. He gave himself a nickname, the Angel of Death. The idea he was trying to sell was that his murders were acts of mercy. But the reality? Well, it was anything but.
Yeah, that whole mercy killer claim, it completely falls apart with his very first murder. It had nothing to do with compassion. According to Harvey himself, a stroke patient smeared feces on him. He didn't feel pity, he felt pure rage. His confession was, "I just lost it," before he smothered the man to death. Right from the get-go, this was all about power and uncontrolled anger. And that one act of rage, well, it didn't stop there. It was just the beginning. It spiraled into a 17-year campaign of terror that spread across multiple hospitals. I mean, just look at this timeline. It's staggering. He starts in 1970. Then, get this, a year later, he's arrested for burglary and actually starts rambling to police about murders, but they can't prove anything and they let him go. A huge, huge missed opportunity. He then just moves to Ohio, kills patients at one hospital for a decade, then moves to another until he's finally caught in 1987. 17 years, multiple institutions. It's unbelievable. And the ways he killed, it's a terrifying laundry list of horrors. We're talking poisons, arsenic, cyanide, you name it. He would suffocate patients with plastic bags and pillows, disconnect their life support, inject air into their veins. He even used things like industrial cleaners. It was like he was constantly experimenting, always refining his techniques to avoid getting caught. And if you need any proof that this wasn't just some random, impulsive thing, consider this. Over the years, he slowly stole and stockpiled 30 pounds of cyanide at his home. 30 pounds. This wasn't impulsive at all. It was a long-term, calculated operation. Okay, and here's another moment that just makes you shake your head in disbelief. In 1985, security at the VA hospital found him with a pistol and books about the occult. I mean, huge red flags, right? But what happened? Pretty much nothing. He was allowed to just quietly resign, no police investigation, no note in his work record. This failure allowed him to walk right into another hospital job and just keep on killing. As he kept getting away with it, his confidence just grew and grew. He actually began to take his work home with him. He poisoned his own lover, not to kill him, but just to keep him sick and at home. He poisoned a neighbor after an argument. He even murdered his lover's father with arsenic-laced pudding during a visit. He was no longer just an opportunist, he was actively hunting in his personal life. So how does a killer who operated with impunity for 17 years finally get caught? Well, it all came down to one small, very subtle clue. It all starts in April of 1987 with a patient named John Powell at Drake Memorial Hospital. His death was really unexpected. He'd been in a coma, sure, but he was actually starting to recover. So when he suddenly died, it just didn't sit right with anyone. It raised enough red flags to trigger a full autopsy. And here it is,
This is the linchpin that blew the whole case wide open. During that autopsy, an assistant coroner detected something faint but totally unmistakable: the smell of bitter almonds. It's the classic textbook sign of cyanide poisoning, and in that one moment, a suspicious death became a murder investigation.
From there, the whole thing unraveled incredibly fast. The police zeroed in on the staff who had access to the patient. They quickly heard his ominous nickname, the Angel of Death, because it seemed like he was always around when people died. A search of his apartment was the final nail in the coffin. They found jars of poison and a detailed diary of his crimes. Facing the death penalty, Harvey finally started talking. And the final number he confessed to? It was absolutely shocking: 70. Now, prosecutors could only officially confirm a fraction of that number, but Harvey's own words painted a gruesome picture of one of the most prolific serial killers in American history.
And don't think for a second this was a case of insanity. The psychiatric experts who evaluated him all agreed he was fully competent. He knew exactly what he was doing. The Cincinnati prosecutor's office described him perfectly: a compulsive killer who killed to release a tension that built up inside of him. It was a need he had to fulfill, over and over again.
Harvey's personal story is horrifying, for sure. But what's maybe even more frightening is what his case exposes about the very systems we're all supposed to trust to protect us.
Harvey was sentenced to multiple life terms, ensuring he would never be free again. His story came to a final, violent end in March 2017, when he was beaten to death in a cell by another inmate.
So why does this all still matter today? Because the scary truth is, Donald Harvey wasn't an anomaly. He's part of a much larger, terrifying pattern. You look at guys like Harold Shipman in Britain or Orville Lynn Majors in Indiana. These are all healthcare workers who use their position of trust to kill, some with victim counts in the hundreds.
Harvey's case is a brutal lesson. It shines a massive spotlight on the deep vulnerabilities in our healthcare systems. I mean, the trust we automatically place in medical staff, the difficulty of questioning a death in a place where death is common, these are the exact weaknesses that killers like him exploit to operate in plain sight.
I want to leave you with a really sobering thought from the renowned forensic scientist Dr. Henry Lee. He called this the easiest kind of serial killing to get away with. The victims are already sick, and the evidence can be so hard to find. It leaves us all with a deeply unsettling question: how do we protect the most vulnerable from the very people they're taught to trust with their lives?